Hello there, everybody. And today, for the honor of Superman coming out this couple of weeks, I've decided to review the movie that started it all, Superman, the movie. So, I think this is the first DC movie, like the big DC movie that they ever done. Because superhero movies were not a thing back in the 70s at all. Like, I don't know if they were considered popular back in the day, but without this movie, we probably wouldn't get the superhero movies we're getting today, like the DCU, the Marvel universe. There's just so much to talk about with Superman the movie. So it stars the amazing Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent, Superman. We got Margot Kidder as Lois Lane and Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. So I saw this movie all the way back in the day when I was wanting to watch all the Superman movies after watching the Batman movies. But we just had to move on to Superman. But I gotta admit, this is probably the only good Superman live action movie out of all these four movies that I like, because this movie is a lot of nostalgia in my opinion. Even though I didn't grow up when this movie came out, this is long before I was born, but it captures the Superman character really well. It shows what it means for Superman to be Superman. There's just so much lore behind the world of Superman that you just can't help but think about the legacy this movie has left in the Superman fandom. But basically, it follows the story of Kal-El, who was a baby on Krypton, but Krypton was about to get destroyed. But in this version of the movie, we actually see the trial of General Zod and his comrades. We get this little cameo. They become relevant in the next movie, but they are put into the Phantom Zone by Jor-El. We even get this infamous speech with General Zod where he screams at him, and I'm pretty sure he says, "Your ass." I thought that scene was funny. But they all get trapped in the Phantom Zone. But Krypton is getting destroyed, of course. And just like if you know the Superman story, pretty much Jor-El and his wife all have to leave the planet. Well, not leave the planet, stay on the planet, but have to find a way for their baby son, Kal-El, to leave the planet. And they put him into a little spacecraft, even putting like a little kryptonite in his space pod, and they basically launch him all the way to Earth. And Kal-El basically crash lands on, I think, Smallville. That's where Jonathan and Martha Kent find baby Kal-El, who's a little bit grown up, and he's given the knowledge of Krypton. But as he gets older, we see a teenage Clark Kent who's growing up on Smallville, and he has his powers, he just can't really use them. But he tries to ask out a girl named Lana, who is Lana Lang, but she ends up going with the football players, and it causes Clark to get mad because he wanted to hang out with her, but he couldn't. But he decides to test his powers by running super speed towards a train. We even see like a little girl, Lois Lane. But the unfortunate things happen later where Jonathan Kent actually has a heart attack and he dies on the farm after having a little talk with Clark. But Clark blames himself because he felt he could have saved his father, but he ends up finding the space pod later that he grew up in, and he decides to go find where Krypton is. Even his mom accepts that he's gonna do this. So he literally goes to Krypton, and we learn that Jor-El has stored all his memories into crystals of the Fortress of Solitude, where Superman's home is, and because of this, it causes Kal-El to grow up and become Superman. And Christopher Reeve as Superman is easily my favorite Superman. Like, he's got that charmingness in his voice. Like, he just looks like Superman. They got the costume perfect. The S, the cape, just everything. It just looks like a classic Superman costume. I do like the DCEU costume. It's a more modern looking Superman suit. But when I think of Superman, I think of this costume. He's even got the little thing on his hair. But Clark Kent decides to move to the Daily Planet, like Metropolis. He decides to get a job as a reporter, just like in the Superman lore. And that's where we do meet Lois Lane, played by Margaret Kidder. Margaret Kidder unfortunately passed away not that long ago. She struggled a lot throughout her life after these movies. But rest in peace, Margaret Kidder. But she meets Clark Kent, who is nervous, awkward, and that's literally the difference between Superman and Clark Kent. Like, Superman is full confidence with his superpowers. Clark Kent is, like, nervous and clumsy. That's what I love about the dynamic between Clark Kent and Superman, since they are the same person and no one suspects that it's him. But even when, like, Clark and Lois end up getting mugged by some guy, Clark ends up getting shot, but of course he survives because he's Superman. But Lois is actually a little shocked that he survived. But what happens next throughout the movie? We see Superman being Superman. Lois decides to leave the Daily Planet in a helicopter, but it malfunctions. And of course, Superman goes into the scene and it saves Lois. And I love this scene where he catches Lois and she goes, "Who's got me? Who's got you?" That was probably the best Lois line in this movie. But Superman saves Lois, and he does various other heroic things. He saves a cat from a tree. He stops a criminal trying to rob a bank with suction cups on the building, and he ends up falling, and Superman catches him, of course. But during all this, there has to be a villain throughout this whole movie, that being Lex Luthor, played by Gene Hackman, who passed away, unfortunately, not that long ago, a few months ago. And I'm surprised he's lived so long. He lived to 95, and it was sad that he died. And it was a very mysterious way, but like that's a different topic. But his legacy lives on as Lex Luthor in his career. But Gene Hackman hasn't acted in years, but I think we'll always remember him for playing Lex Luthor and other roles he played, of course. But apparently he is trying to get Superman's attention through various simple crimes. But it isn't later in the movie where Superman does finally meet Lex in the movie. But Lex basically has a crazy plan up his sleeve. And he's already rich in this movie. Like, he's got his own maid, Miss Tessmacher. He's got a not really a bodyguard, just a henchman named Otis, who's a clumsy dude. But apparently Lex is causing various schemes that does catch Superman's attention. And he's even able to contact Superman through some I don't know what it is, like some signal thing or whatever. But Superman ends up meeting Lex in his lair. And it's actually revealed that Lex's plan is that he is going to launch 2 nuclear missiles that will cause an earthquake in California and basically destroy California so he can take the land for himself. And he knows Superman's going to get in the way, so he's going to cause this earthquake so Superman can get distracted from all that's going on. But Superman goes into the scene, and I even love how he just does not tolerate Luthor at all. Even when he tries to set various traps at Superman, Superman can just outwit all of them, of course. But the main thing that Lex Luthor has is kryptonite, which apparently he has in a locked chain after Superman tries to find the detonator so he can stop Lex's evil plan. It almost seems like Lex could, easily be stopped, but no, he's got a trick up his sleeve, that being the kryptonite. And he basically puts it on Superman, throws him into the pool he was using earlier in the movie, and Superman is basically gonna drown in this. It was that simple for Lex to take out Superman. Usually in modern DC right now, he uses a power suit in most versions, but in this movie, all it took was just a chain with kryptonite. But Miss Tessmacher ends up learning of Lex's plan that it will actually affect her mother actually, but Lex doesn't care, of course, and so Miss Tessmacher decides to have a change of heart. She decides to save Superman from drowning, and she ends up even kissing him for some reason. But Superman decides that he must stop the two missiles. He does stop one, but unfortunately the earthquake already happens, and various bad things are already happening. A flood happens, a giant wall landmark gets destroyed, and Jimmy Olsen, who is reporting the situation, he ends up almost falling off the building. But he is saved by Superman, of course. But Lois is actually doing a story in the far area of California, but she ends up getting into a car accident by the earthquake, and she actually ends up getting buried alive. And this is where the movie actually gets really intense, where Superman has to stop various national disasters as best he can. But unfortunately, I did not expect to see this in this movie at all. Lois actually dies in the car, and it actually devastates Superman. Even he did save all of them. He did save all those people, but he could not save Lois, unfortunately. But this is where the biggest twist of this movie, Superman ends up screaming into the sky. He literally rotates the entire Earth, just reversing every bad thing that happened because of Lex. And some people don't like this decision in that movie, but honestly, I kind of like it because it doesn't really make sense. It's silly, but I like it for that, for how obscure it is, since it is fiction after all. But Superman's able to rotate the Earth and just fix everything, and Lois is saved, of course, and she actually remembers what happened, but she doesn't remember her almost dying. But Superman literally brings Lex Luthor back to prison, and he actually takes off his hair, revealing that he was wearing a wig this whole time. But the movie ends with Superman flying into the sky, smiling at the camera, just like every Superman movie would later just use that same shot of Superman. But I forgot to mention one major thing. The flying scene. That was probably the best scene in the whole movie, where Lois interviews Superman after wanting to find out more about him. But Superman takes Lois for a flight, and the two actually relate while flying, and it's a really touching moment. But yeah, that's Superman the movie. This movie was easily fantastic. It can easily be considered one of the best superhero movies of all time. Is it my favorite? I don't think so. But this movie is really nostalgic for me, since it helps me understand the Superman character, since I'm more of a Batman person. But I definitely have a good spot for Superman, and it's definitely because of this movie. But after Superman 1 and 2, it seems like the Superman movies kind of just went downhill. But we'll always remember Superman for this movie. But it's unfortunate that we don't have Christopher Reeve anymore. Yeah, it's unfortunate he had that accident. And it was sad that his last movie was Superman 4 Quest for Peace. I meant like the last time he played Superman. He was in Smallville, but unfortunately he passed away, and then his character got written off in Smallville, unfortunately. But without Christopher Reeve, Superman probably wouldn't be as big as he is today. I mean, he always been big. He's the most well-known superhero of all time. But I feel like Christopher Reeve is the reason why this movie is so big, because he was definitely fit for the role. He literally even worked out to do this movie. But there's just a lot of good things in this movie. The movie honestly doesn't really hold up today, since it did come out in the 70s, and some of the stuff does look dated from today's movies. But it was definitely great for its time back then, since this movie was able to make a movie about Superman flying. That's what makes it so good. Even the flying looks good at times. You can tell there's green screen. But overall, this movie is really good, in my opinion. From nitpicks aside, this movie is a classic. So I'd give this movie a 10 out of 10. But next I'm doing Superman 2, but it's going to be the Richard Donner cut, since I think that movie's much better than the original Superman 2. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.